What's up guys, Artem MMA Analysis here, going to be talking about who I think that the UFC are going to match up the Dana White's Contender Series debuting fighters, and we've got to consider quite a few things here. People that have already got booked fights, people that have fought recently, people that got knocked out recently, we can't have them debut against them. But we're going to be talking about week number 3 and week number 4 of Dana White's Contender Series, and I'm going to be giving you guys who I think each fighter that was signed to the UFC is going to fight next. I think after Dana White's Contender Series, I might actually do this for UFC fight cards. I think that could make a little bit of sense, kind of like the MMA Guru does. But yeah, let's just talk about some fighters here. So the first ones I'm going to talk about Jamal Pogues and Eric Silva. They've actually already got fights booked. Eric Silva is going to be fighting against TJ Brown, and I'm expecting Eric Silva to get a submission win in that fight there. A lot of people are talking about how they think that Eric Silva is going to become like some big superstar or something, but he's almost 36 years old. Like, this guy is probably going to retire in a couple of years. If he wants to make something happen, he has to make it happen now. But he's quite good, and I do think that TJ Brown's a good debut for him. But if at the age of almost 36, if he wants to make a run into the rankings, he has to start doing some work and fighting often, which he does. He has fought quite often in the past. And he's going to have to start fighting these almost ranked guys to get in the rankings at this age, because he probably only has 2 or 3 years of his career left, to be brutally honest. But tough one on Chuckwee versus Jamal Pogues has also been booked. I'm actually not 100% sure if this is at 205 pounds or at 265 pounds, sorry. If it's at heavyweight, I like Jamal Pogues. If it's at light heavyweight, I actually like tough one on Chuckwee. Believe it or not, because Jamal Pogues, if you didn't know, he's actually a wrestler, but he did not wrestle whatsoever against Paulo Renato Jr. He just stood and boxed the kickboxer, which was cool. But yeah, he's a wrestler, you know, and I think we're gonna see Jamal Pogues wrestle in this matchup here. I think he's gonna have a much bigger advantage if he does fight at heavyweight than light heavyweight. But yeah, that's an upcoming matchup anyway. Clayton Carpenter just defeated Edgar Chairez in a very close competitive fight. Edgar Chairez was much bigger than him in that matchup, so now we're going to be giving Clayton Carpenter a man that is going to be smaller than him, and a man that's actually just recently been signed to the UFC himself, Jesus Santos Aguila. I think Jesus Santos Aguila versus Clayton Carpenter makes sense. They're both kind of on the same track. Jesus Santos Aguila recently got signed to the UFC. He fought a couple of weeks after Clayton Carpenter did, so they're both kind of on the same sort of track. I don't think Santos took too much damage. I think they're both ready to fight sometime at the end of the year, so I think that we should do these two against each other, and it's not like you're throwing either guy into a fight which doesn't make sense. Like, he's 8-1, he's got 9 fights on his record, and Clayton Carpenter is 6-0, he's got 6 fights on his record. So both guys about the same amount of experience in professional MMA. I think that fight makes a little bit of sense. Now we're going to talk about Nazim Sadov, who is just become 7-1 by beating Hassan Zada there, and it was a pretty exciting fight. He beat Hassan Zada up a lot, to be honest. And the opponent that I have got lined up for him is none other than Eric Gonzalez. That's the one that I come up with, Eric Gonzalez. I think that it would be a banger. Nazim Sadov, he's only 7-1. He's not that experienced, you know. Eric Gonzalez has had 20 professional fights, and I think that fight makes a little bit of sense. You could maybe put him in there with Cameron Van Camp, but Van Camp just got knocked out, so he's probably not going to be ready to fight for another 5 months, 6 months or so. So I wouldn't give him a quick turnaround. I think Eric Gonzalez might be a fight that makes sense. He did hurt Terrence McKinney a little bit in that fight with a good shot. I think Nazim Sadov versus Eric Gonzalez would just be a great fight. I think it would be a banger and a logical step up. I know the experience is a lot different, and I just talked about that before. But now we move on. I completely forgot Hayley Cowan got signed, so we'll go to that in the end, and I'll fire up the UFC Women's Bantamweight rankings, and I'll have a look there. But if we move on to the next one, we have Jose Johnson fighting at 135, and the fighter that I picked out for him to make his debut against was Chad Anhaliga. Chad Anhaliga is 1-1 in the UFC right now. He has got a 12-6 record. He did get signed off Dana White's Contender Series himself. He recently fought Haley Alating. He did take a little bit of damage, so he might want to take a little bit of time off. But also, if you wanted to put him up in there against a grappler, or a fight against Simon Oliveira makes a lot of sense as well. Both guys are grapplers. Simon Oliveira shoots for a lot of guillotines. He's got good jiu-jitsu himself. And another guy with good jiu-jitsu is Jose Johnson. But Jose Johnson's mostly a striker. I actually think Jose Johnson versus Chen Anhaliga would be a great stand-up fight. I think Jose Johnson versus Simon Oliveira might even be a grappling bout. So I think they could make a little bit of sense. Now, Claudio Ribeiro just recently got a quick KO. Took no damage whatsoever. So if I was Claudio Ribeiro and I wanted to make a good impact on the UFC, I would make my debut sometime this year. Hopefully when he can make a quick turnaround. And the fighter that I wanted to put him in there with was Dusko Todorovic, a good fighter. You know, he's pretty well rounded. He does have a little bit of grappling, but where he struggles the most, and this is why I wanted to make the matchup, was Dusko Todorovic doesn't have the best striking defense whatsoever. And that is what Claudio Ribeiro kind of needs, because Claudio Ribeiro's striking is very sloppy. It's very easily seen. I think him versus Dusko could make a little bit of sense. He could fight Dennis Tiuliulin maybe as well. Maybe even Jamie Pickett as well. That's kind of a guy that they like to make a lot of people debut against. But I was looking at Dusko Todorovic. I think Dusko Todorovic might win that matchup. It's a close fight, in my opinion. A much more competitive fight than other fights he could probably make. But yeah, I'm looking at Dusko Todorovic to be a debut for Claudio Ribeiro. I think that makes sense as well. Dusko did recently get KO'd by Chetty, so he's probably wanting to take time off. So I didn't actually consider that. Oh, I'm so dumb. My bad, team. Maybe Dennis Tiuliulin. Dennis Tiuliulin recently won. He didn't take too much damage against Jamie Pickett. Maybe he's ready to go at the end of the year, because I know that he does like to fight often. So yeah, that could be a matchup that makes sense. Dennis Tiuliulin versus Ribeiro, and I think that Tiuliulin would actually win that matchup. Now, Esteban Rivovic, this guy is very UFC level. He's a great fighter. If you look at the UFC lightweight division, I don't want to match him up against guys like this. I want to put him up there a little bit, and the fight that I think makes sense to me is Nicholas Motta. I think that would be a banger of a fight, yeah. Or even Damir Hadzovic as well could make sense. I think Damir Hadzovic could be a good way to really boost him up the rankings a little bit. But I think the guy that you want him to fight is Nicholas Motta. He recently did lose to Jim Miller, but he bounced back with a KO win over Cameron Van Camp. So he's 1-1 in the UFC. He's pretty big. He's pretty small for the division. I think he's like 5'9", and I don't think that Esteban Rivovic is the tallest guy in the world either. But Esteban Rivovic, he did take a little bit of damage against Paul, but not really too much. I think he should be well recovered by now. He's 5'10", so both guys aren't the biggest guys for the lightweight division. I think Rivovic versus Nicholas Motta makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Now we move on to Hayley Cowan. I completely forgot that she was signed, not gonna lie. It was a split decision win. I think that Cowan did win it, but it was close. Claudia Leite is probably a girl that if she gets one more win, the UFC might sign her. So you might see her in the UFC maybe sometime next year. Maybe on Dana White's Contender Series next year you'll see Claudia Leite. But Hayley Cowan, in my opinion, she won the fight. Barely won the fight. No one was picking Hayley Cowan to win. Well, the women's bantamweight rankings, look at this. There's 23 people, 23 fighters on the entire roster. They should just sign Claudia Leite. There's not enough fighters to pick and choose who's gonna be in there. I think the fight for Hayley Cowan that makes sense right now, maybe Jocelyn Edwards. I think Jocelyn Edwards versus Hayley Cowan probably makes sense to me. I mean, it's just a weird division. Like, there's just not enough fighters to kind of pick and choose. Like, maybe you could give her, I don't know, maybe you could give her Josiane Nunes, maybe. But she's massive for the division. I don't think that would be a good matchup. I think that Hayley Cowan should be able to beat Nunes. I think just Jocelyn Edwards, because she's quite tall herself. Jocelyn Edwards versus Hayley Cowan might make sense. I mean, wow, I didn't realize there was only like 23 fighters in the whole roster. Man, they really just need to cull the 145 division and just make them make 135. Espen Ladd, I'm looking at you. And yeah, wow, there's like not enough people at 135 in the women's division. Hopefully I didn't waste too much time in that one. It was a pretty sloppy video, but that was 9 minutes long. I think I got through what I wanted to. So thank you very much for watching. UFC predictions for the Durand versus Jan card out tomorrow. Not a good card in my opinion, but it is what it is. I'll be recording that tomorrow and then uploading it then. By the way, Bo Nickel was fighting on Dana White's Contender Series week number 10. Headlining against Donovan Beard. You don't want to miss it. So yeah, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you tomorrow in the prediction video.